Thanks, Pat. Well, we're here to talk, last of the Mohicans, here to talk about engaging with the muds to recover resources. This is itself a challenge, but let's tell you how we went about it and what the results were. First, I'll give you a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about the background of why we chose the muds and look at how we can recover the resources there. I'll give you a quick idea of what the services we provide to the muds currently and prospectively what we did after that. The engagement we did with the stakeholders as to how we went about talking to them, working with them. And then, of course, we need to identify the appropriate recyclers and how we went about doing that. Also, of course, with everything, there's a dollar value, what was our budget, and then how the progress went of the trial, and also our evaluation and conclusion. So we'll start with that. A quick background of what we did. Basically, the contaminations in recycling of the muds is normally quite significant. Our research the data suggested that we had contamination of about 1 to about 30% in most of the mud complexes. The larger complexes tend to be a bit more guilty of higher contamination, and the smaller ones where there's probably a lot more control over, there's a less amount of contamination. So we said that let's focus on some of the larger muds and see what we can do to help reduce the contamination. We also wanted to understand what is the recycling practices at the muds, why they behave, what is the reason for behavior, and what can be done to improve it. So hence we chose about 4 muds, large unit blocks. Typically these unit blocks were 70 units and up to 200 units. There was one unit block which was about 350 or almost 400 units. That's how we chose them. The services provided to the muds, we'll talk to Cameron, we'll talk about it.
Okay. Can everyone hear me with the microphone down here? Yeah? So the services we provided to muds were pretty much standard. We had the general waste, commingle, and garden waste, which Cleanaway provide Canterbury. We also had bulk household waste collections as well, so I'm sure that's pretty much everybody, apart from garden waste. The issues we had with commingled recycling were contamination, which everybody experiences. We found that there were a lot of soft plastics, so plastic bags and plastic packaging, e-waste and clothing and fabric as well, as well as polystyrene. Decided we should implement source separation in muds and provide them with bulk cardboard bins, which, due to the harvest program run at Cleanaway, we collect soft plastic and polystyrene with the bulk cardboard, so we could deal with the initial moving in phase and large boxes and Meals on Wheels and all that kind of stuff. Not Meals on Wheels, Light and Easy and all those kind of high polystyrene issues. We also had e-waste, which was talked about by David as well in his. There's a big issue, and it's not just we're SS Rock, but it's an issue everywhere. We also had clothing and fabric, which we found a lot in commingle recycling, and we figured we had to deal with it. So how does that one? There we go. Oh, whoops. There we go. Okay. So stakeholder engagement. The initial phase of the mud engagement strategy, in the initial phase of the mud engagement strategy, stakeholder engagement was particularly important as awareness needed to be raised and all relevant stakeholders had to have their knowledge on recycling consolidated. Stakeholders directly impacted by improved or changing waste services and the local community who would be indirectly affected by changing waste services were targeted to ensure the trial's success. Okay, so the direct engagement strategies used in this trial involved dealing with all stakeholders directly affected by the implementation of additional services. Groups we engaged with included strata managers and/or building managers, cleaners, and mud residents mainly. It was important to involve all relevant parties to increase the uptake and usage of additional and existing services. And, there we go. Strata managers and building managers were key to this as they manage the mud and they control much of the day-to-day running of the services, including cleaning and waste management services. Cleaners were also a valuable resource as they were used as educators to consolidate recycling knowledge and provide additional education to residents. As residents are primarily the ones using the services, sorry, I'm struggling up here, to do that, they need to be motivated and supported in their efforts to recycle and do the right thing by making the bins simple and easy to use. All parties have been supported by the use of simple signage, constant education, and open communication channels between all involved. This has been an effective way in increasing resource recovery rates and limiting contamination rates. Collection scheduling was also discussed with cleaners and building management. This was to determine the best time of collection for the additional services as well as the pre-booked cleanups, and where necessary, we had an on-call system as well. So when the e-waste especially and the clothing, when they filled up, we just called them because the contractors were local, and we just got the contractors to pick them up. Okay. The picture there shows George and Maroon. They were the first mud we dealt with. That's about 200 units, and they've pretty much been our poster child for low contamination rates and high use of the cleaners to talk to residents, as Maroon's pretty much there every day. Okay, so we've just got a quote here from Fraser's property, the building managers at another site in Clempton Park. There's about 400, I think it's 400 units at this site, and we've provided them with the additional services as well. So we've tailored the services provided to each mud, dependent on what the building managers were after and what the residents needed. Okay, so then we move on to community engagement. The community engagement strategies used in this trial involve dealing with the broader community around the muds, and community groups who operated in the area surrounding the targeted muds were engaged with to inform the general public as well as promote the additional services. Libraries were used to advertise correct source separation techniques as well as correct recycling practices to be used throughout the LGA. Workshops were conducted to teach local community groups about the local community in general, about recycling and the services provided to them. These workshops varied widely from due to their target demographics. We included children, adults, seniors, and the cold community as well. So we kind of tailored each one to the different communities. We tapped into a lot of ASL groups, and I think we used the Chinese reading group at one of them as well. So we just tried to use as many different community groups to hit as many people as possible. Signage was developed to be pictorial based so that we kind of avoided the language barrier and the impact it has on reducing source separation and contamination rates. Oh, actually, this is a picture of some of the local community members who do a clean-up around Riverwood. So that's around the area of the first mud that we were talking about. They do a lot of collecting of polystyrene, and we've allowed them to use the services provided to the muds because it's cleaning up the local area and it's assisting everyone in general.
Thanks, Ken. The next step was basically identifying appropriate recyclers. Any project we looked at was we have to get the right recyclers to be able to take the material, make it sustainable, and people who can actually deliver the service what they say they would deliver. We are lucky, we are working already with Cleanaway, and we were able to speak to Michael McNamara, who is their manager, and he was very supportive of the whole trial. And he suggested that we go with the bulk cardboard collection and also to look at the polystyrene and loose plastics. Collecting polystyrene loose plastics was quite a challenge initially, mentally. It's we hadn't done it anywhere in our LGA. So, but with the support from Cleanaway, we were able to do that. And we found a lot of residents actually being very supportive. And we were able to collect a significant amount of large cardboard coming in, especially in the new, some of the 200-unit buildings were new. And the amount of cardboard coming in was just staggering. It was just incredible. And we earlier started with having about 1100 recycle bins for collecting the cardboard. they were not enough. It was just impossible. We had to do 2 collections on a Monday and a Tuesday as well to carry the load, but this sort of, thanks to Cleanaway, we were able to manage that and move that forward. The next issue, the problem waste, is definitely e-waste. It was quite challenging to locate the correct recycler which would suit our requirements. We looked at the bin design as to what the size of the bin would be, and how it can be collected and frequently done. So we worked with Reverse E-Waste to make this happen, and he was able to provide us with a 660-liter bin. And that was easy. Virtually the residents, once they saw one TV there, they knew what it was for. And we created appropriate signages, what Karen mentioned before, very visual, so that it was easy for people to understand and do this. And that's the key for us. The next one was clothing. We found a lot of clothing from our data entering into the recycle stream, which gets rejected, and also clothing ending up in the red bin. So we worked with King Cotton, who is a local supplier who sort of recycles clothing in our LGA. And the key here was the design of the bin. For us, having another 660-liter or a 240-liter bin, a different color lid or something was not, to my mind, it was not suitable. We had to get something which was different. So we looked at an opportunity to design a bin, as you can see, a cage bin, very visual, where people can actually see the clothing coming in. Initially, there was concern that normally clothing bins are outside. They're never inside a building. And they're going dumping. People put all sorts of rubbish in it and stuff like that. But we took it on and said, well, there are about 25 or 30 rubbish bins right next to the clothing bin. So what are the chances of the people actually putting rubbish into a clothing bin? So, well, our statistics said very, very successful, and it really worked very well. So that was one of the main things for the whole design of this program, on particularly the clothing bins as to the correct size of the clothing bin and also the design. So Tony Rallis was the man from King Cotton. He was very supportive. See, he's told us what he thought the whole trial was all about, and we are lucky to have him to work with us. Now, talk about the budget, the real dollar figures, how it works. Well, to me, it's important to look at how we deal with the recyclers and work it out. It's important for the recyclers to make money and to ensure that we keep them sustainable. We worked out a budget, a standard quote with Cleanaway, a standard quote with eWaste, and a standard quote with King Cotton. So basically, we worked out a 12-month trial and see how much it's going to cost and how effective it's going to be. So really, it has been a pretty good journey. There's not been any issues. We are virtually under budget, actually, on this whole program. The progress of the trial, it's been about 8 months, approximately, for the bulk cardboard, the polystyrene, the loose plastics, and e-waste, and about 3 months for the clothing. And so far, it's gone well. And I'll let Cameron give you more details on the data.
Okay, so for the evaluation, we figured we show you a lot of numbers because we know everyone in the waste industry loves their tonnages. So we had, in the initial phase of 8 weeks, 2 months, we had collected 3.25 tonnes of bulk cardboard, which was, as we saw in the pictures, it was ridiculous. And so over the whole trial, we've collected 8.37 tonnes of bulk cardboard in the last 8 months. We've collected half a tonne of polystyrene and nearly half a tonne of soft plastic. We collected nearly 6.5 tonnes of e-waste. In the last 3 months, we've only been doing the clothing and fabric for 3 months. We've collected nearly 1.5 tonnes. So we were pretty happy with those numbers. We've had a contamination rate consistently at below 4% at all of our muds in all of the services. So it's not just 1 or 2 of them are all good. We were happy with everyone. So in the conclusion, so was the strategy a success? I would say yes, but I'm probably biased. You can see from the evaluation that the numbers are pretty good and the contamination rate was low. So we're willing to say that it was pretty successful. So do stakeholders and users like it? We found that all our stakeholders were very supportive of it, as were the users. Yeah, we didn't have any negative comments really at all. The only ones we had were about that they need to be emptied more often because they were being used so often. So is source separation possible in MUDs? Yes, we've seen it. There's a picture of the setup there, and that's what we've been running as a standard setup in most of the MUDs. Yeah, so we think it is. And are there any plans for a future rollout? Yes, we're already in the process of rolling it out in more MUDs in Canterbury. And there's another couple that are being built as we speak, so they'll be targeted next. And yeah, I guess, any questions? That's it.